I'm back! Here I am again. This time we got one of these things. Whoa! Yeah, Mesa Boogie Mark V. Now, I've had a number of Mesa Boogies over the years. I had a Mark III, I had a tri-axis, and it's 290. That was a great match. I had a Mark IV, great amp, so it started crackling after about 15 years and I just got rid of that. I had another Mark IV recently actually, and what I did with that was to recover it and all that sort of stuff, but we'll talk a bit about that one a bit later on because there's a few funnies on that one. And anyway, then I got the Road King 2, which some of you have seen the video about, and if you haven't seen it, whip over to my channel, take a really good look, because wow, I convert it from 110 to 240. Oh, or is it 120? It doesn't matter, it's a conversion. That's what matters. Anyway, moving to this fine specimen. No, not me, it. What are we going to do? Well, you know, I do these videos of inside and out. I like to get the guts out. Oh. Okay, I've been degutsed, but this is going to be degutsed. It's going to be Mesa Boogie review inside and out. But what we're going to do first is look at the inside, get that sort of thing out of the way, and then we'll have a run across these buttons and knobs and things and have a look around the back. I'm not going to particularly play it. I've got one we did earlier and I'll probably stuff that on the end of this video so you get an idea of what it can sound like. But it's only in one sort of mode. But don't worry about it, there's so many sounds in this thing, it's awesome. Anyway, on to the degutsing, rock and roll. Well, here I am. That was quick, wasn't it? Not really. Actually, to get this out, it's a little bit awkward. They've got this thing that holds this big fat chunk up in the air so that the chassis doesn't sort of drop. Remember, it goes that way. All very good until you try and get one out. Anyway, what I'm going to do is bring the camera down, we'll have a quick look at the top, and then we'll flip it over and have a look inside. Oh, the things you've never really seen. Maybe you have, but most of us haven't, have we? Here we go. Well, here's the sort of top inside, if you will. Nice transformer, bigger, fatter transformer. Input, output. Load of 12 AX7s. You can see them all spread out. These are all very interesting, aren't they? I wonder if they use the same chassis for something else. Highly likely. Don't say what. What we got down the front here is a 1, 2, 3, 4, 6L6 GCs, or they call them STR 440s. I don't know why, but it's just life. Two have been changed out for tube amp Doctor ones, which the guy previous to me did. Probably wore it out. Not surprised. He played on. Got a signature and a date. Okay, Americanism, 11th of February, not 2nd of November. There you go. Choke. Nice little fan, which keeps, I guess, that or these cold. Take your pick which way around it blows. I don't know. But no doubt we'll have a look. Yeah. Oh, very nice. Another one there. Don't know what that one's for. Not to worry. We'll blast on and have a good look at the insides. This is what we're really here for, rather than to look at a few cases that anybody can see if you look hard enough underneath. Oh, here we are. Typical Mesa Boogie inside. All very nice, I'm afraid. Not like some things, but you can see the layouts. Typical Mesa. This is the power supply end, and it comes here. And away you go. By the way, if you are going to do any conversions from 120 to 240, don't forget that transformer has to be juggled out, because it doesn't come with 240 in it, a 240 input in it. And then you've got to redo all the wires. A bit like the triple rector really, except that on this amp, what they've got, so if you look really carefully down there, I'll flip it around, shall we? Yes, if you look really carefully down here, you'll see where everything has to be changed. There the MOVs are sitting pretty, and everything else looks cool. You just change the wires out, and these that run off along here, all the way down to there. There's usually the brown as well. Yeah, there's the brown, there's the greens, and away you go. So that's how we do that. Coming back around, let's see if we can see anything on the circuit. You should see actually that the circuit board, like the Road King, has a more drawn appearance rather than a computer appearance. Although what I would say is, looking down there at some of those things, yeah, looking down there at some of those things, those look a bit more computerized than hand drawn to me. And indeed down there, not quite the same nice rounded edges. Or up there, see, they're not quite as rounded as they were on the Road King. Maybe Mesa's moved on a bit. Look at the top. Hard to see really. Yeah, who knows. In any case, it's quite a nice design, and it's really well put together. One of the things I do like about them is they always use regular pots, as you can see, that you can just change out. All very nice. None of this faffing around with the other stuff. Let's have a run across it. What we got here? Channel 1. Channel 2. Pretty much like you'd expect, I guess. Channel 3. Now we come to this big fat hunk here, which is the EQ board. You know, that thing on the front. Oh, look, a few transistors. I haven't seen them in a while. What else we got? They have all these jumpers across from one board to another that I always seem to like, because that means that you've got more than one board and you can change the boards out. So everything on the back is covered by that board there, all the way along. So you could change the board if you get a major problem with that. We've got another board here. This board here, this one, is actually the main board for the power tubes. Which again, is quite nice to see that it's a separate board, so you get any major problems in that area, you can flip the board out and I'm sure Mesa will sell you another one. There you go. Then we've got the main board. Quite a complex board actually, because what you get is a load of these things, which are like little switches. And there's loads of them. All very nice. What we got here? And chunky things. Big fat diodes, maybe. I don't know. All I know is it looks good, but it sounds better. I just wanted to show you the insides anyway, as I normally do on the inside and out, because I think that typically Mesa are really one of the best made amps out there. There's nothing to come in and straighten up or set right, as you do often maybe with a Marshall. But with these, you take it out, you might as well just look at it and put it back, because there's nothing at all on the thing to, you know, often you'd get little capacitors bent up out the way and things like that on Marshall, which you don't get, it appears, on any of the ones that I've seen of these. Maybe you do, I've never seen any. That's a quick look at the outside. Let's go back up top. One of the last things I wanted to talk about was the 5U4GB Rectifier. There it is. All very nice. From factory, of course. This amp comes with the silicone, or silicon, it depends where you come from, and also the tube rectification. You also notice that the shielding on this tube is extensive. It's one within one, in fact. Awesome. I'm back. That's a quick look at inside and on the top here. I mean, there's not really much to talk about except to have a good look and see how the thing's put together in real life, especially for this money in the UK. Very expensive. Even second hand is still fetching anything between 16 and 1800 pounds. That's a lot dearer than the 22.50 you pay in America. Dollars, that is. Which is about £1,500 in England equivalent. So every time I go to the States, I never found a second-hand one of these. I kept looking and looking, but it didn't seem to be there. So I ended up buying a second-hand one in England. It does the same thing in America, but at least I get the English transformer, I guess. And if you watch my video on the Rectifier, well, Road King, we'll call it that. Road King 2, then you can see me change one of these out, but I don't need to do that on this one, so we're not going to do it. So I showed you the board though inside, so you get your idea yourself of how to do that. In the meantime, I'm going to put this back in its cab, which it looks better. It works too. I'm going to drink the tea. Now tea's a funny thing because a lot of you guys keep thinking of Boston. Yeah, we should have won. I'll be back soon. One last thing just before I do rebox this thing. There's a nice little plate inside, showing you all the tubes and things like that. The only problem is you can't see it for the most part, so I'm sure it'll come in handy for something. I can't think what though. And there's that thing that holds the transformer up. That's how heavy the transformer is. So that's from below, remember. Whoa. I'm back. And so is it. Fantastic amplifier. I wanted one of these for a very long time, and it's all well and good having all the simulators and emulators and all them other words that they come out with, but honestly, it's absolutely nothing like having a Mesa Boogie Mark 5. Nothing. I've got them all. I've tried them all. I've played them all. I've done whatever else you want to do with an amp. Hold the door open. I don't know. But this one, in the right mode, not mood, in the right mode, for me, has a fantastic sound. It's a bit like a Road King in Road King 2, that is, when it's in Channel 3 Vintage. It's an awesome lead tone, and so is this thing, but it's actually better than a Road King 2 Vintage Channel 3. What I want to do is, I'll show you the pedal next, and then we'll have a run through some of the things on the front, some of the things on the back. I'm not going into the 100th degree because I could sit here for hours talking about, well, I usually do. I could sit here talking for hours about things that, to be honest, unless you own one, is a little bit irrelevant. But we'll have a quick run through, a quick overview of the front and the back, and then you can have a listen at the I'll put a little part of the video that I did before through this, and you get an idea of the tones. Let's do that. And one of the things I want to do is to give you a few tips as I go of some of the things that I found. I'm no expert in driving a Mark 5 Mesa Boogie to the nth degree. It's an impossibility. There's just far too much that you could, and these tone guides, I mean, my ears are not what they used to be, so it all sounds good to me. So, but anyway, this is the pedal you get with it, and it isn't really the pedal itself I want to talk about, but I do want to cover this because it's a useful tip for Mark IV and Mark V guys. In particular Mark IV, but we'll talk about the Mark V and the problem I had when I bought this second hand, as you do, that's the pedal, as you do, and then it doesn't work. It's really scary, especially when you spend this sort of money. So I'll get you around that. Anyway, we'll get the pedal. You just got all the things you want. Reverb, channel 1, 2, 3. You've got a solo button for, really all that does is use the loop for like a boost, a bit like a Road King 2 and a Recto and one or two of the others. You've got a mute, which is nice. I like that. I have that on most of the time. An EQ, an FX loop, and away you go. But what's important is this thing in the end here. That wire comes out of there and it goes in the back of the amp, and you'll see it in a little bit. And when I got this, I plugged it all in and everything worked fantastic except for one thing, and I'll tell you what it was. It wasn't immediately obvious what the problem was. This FX loop here, now that's an important thing to me, is the FX, because I sound crap without it. but the FX loop didn't work. I could switch it and it didn't work, but I could flip it on the back of the amp and it did work. Now my experience with Mark IV has led me to believe that, hey, here we go, circuit problems and all sorts of things. I'll talk about them in a minute. There's nothing to do with that. If you take a look at this thing on the end, you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 pins. Now, go and have a look at a Road King Mark II, and it's exactly the same cable, except that one pin is missing, and I think it's the centre pin actually. There's a centre one on this, and there isn't on the Road King 2 or on some of the other Mesa Boogies. There's 7 pins on some of them. I don't know them all because I haven't had every last one, but all I can tell you is when the guy sends you this amp with the 7-pin cable, that doesn't work. It's as simple as that. But of course, to diagnose that is a bit of a weird thing, because he sent you the cable that it came with, right? Wrong. If ever you get your FX on this amp doesn't switch, check your cable first. If the centre pin might be broken off, it could be anything really, but it's going to probably be cable. If you can switch at the back here, but you can't switch with this. It's unlikely to be the other things of the Mark IV. Now I do want to talk a little bit about a Mark IV Mesa Boogie. Well, why am I talking about a Mark IV when we've got this here? Well, it's all simple, because this, in many ways, is actually, in my view, it's a derivative of a Mark IV. I know he's got these other modes as well, and they've bent and twisted the thing around an awful lot. It's supposed to cover, I think, a 1 or 2 C+. They're all in here, and we'll cover them in a bit. But it covers Mark IV as well, by the way. But there's more to it than that. This Mark IV that I had, the original one, I never had a single problem in about 15 years I had that amp. And I used to crank it really loud in those days. And only once, many years down the road, it had a problem with crackling, and I decided to sell it. So I just thought, well, there's newer amps out there, and I bought a Road King 1, which is a big mistake, but we'll talk about that some other time. So anyway, this Mark IV, off it went. But I always had it in the back of my mind that, wow, Mark IV, it's one of the best amps I ever had, particularly with that Jimmy Page guitar that you see reviewed on my site. Them two together were awesome. Now if you go on my website, www.tonymckenzie.com, you'll see a whole story about the Jimmy Page Les Paul and a Mark IV Mesa Boogie, which is really, really worth going and seeing. Honestly, you wouldn't believe it. But anyway, I decided to buy another Mark IV about a year ago, 9 months, a year ago. And I decided, it was tatty on the outside, so I decided to do it up with like you know, that cream Toex. I got it from the States and I did it all up. And when I bought the amp, I tested it while I was there and it worked fine. And you know, what we got there? I don't know what that is. Ignore the strange sounds. Could be the wife or not. Anyway, it all worked. All the pedal worked nicely. And I got the amp home and guess what? The pedal didn't work. When I went and scoured the internet, as you do, trying to stay away from those forums, basically I decided that there was a problem with the pedal. So I went on the internet again and had a look for the price of a pedal, which was $275, plus shipping, plus this, plus that. It wasn't worth it. I could have thrown it in the bin. Anyway, so I decided to have a look myself, and I pulled this thing apart, the Mark IV one, and there were 2 or 3 chips in there, and I changed, and funny enough they were all socketed, which gives away a little bit of a thing, doesn't it, Mr. Mesa? Yeah, so I changed all the ones and bought them for 2 or 3 pence, or well, £2 or £3 or $5 or $6 off the internet. They eventually arrived from China, put them in, didn't cure it. So I then followed it back to the amp, I whipped the chassis out, and where the cable went in, guess what, there was another couple of chips there. So the whole circuit had the chips changed, and you know what, solved it 100%. I didn't have to throw the pedal away, I didn't have to throw the amp away, I didn't have to take it to somebody that was going to charge me the earth to change a few chips out that cost literally £1 each. And there was the story of the Mark IV, and I sold it. I did keep it a while after that actually, because I like Mark IVs, and that comes back to this. That's the reason I bought this. It says very specifically on here, Mark IV. It's riddled in Mark IV. And bear in mind they don't make Mark IVs anymore. This was the amp of choice. I tried to buy it in America, in guitar centres and places like that. You know, they wouldn't knock a single penny off. It was all price fixed, so I told them to sit on it. Yeah. So there's the story of the Mark IV pedal, and indeed the story of the Mark V pedal. If somebody gives you the wrong cable, which is I guess easy to do, he did change it for the right cable in the end, by the way. So I got the good deal. I think I did. It was still a bit pricey though. Let's have a look at the front, and I'll bring the camera in a bit close. By the way, just while we're doing this, all these settings here are my settings. Now you might like them or hate them. I use this with a 4x12 Marshall cab, 1968, and to me it sounds great. I don't want to be chugging along on a drop C and things like that. It's not really me. So these settings here work very nicely for me in the studio. They may not work for you. Okay, like I said, these are real quick checks on my settings. I'm not going to spend all day telling you all about them. Set to clean on this one. You've got a fat mode and a tweed mode. Tweed's a bit like an overdriven Fender type of thing, and fat just makes the bottom end a bit more, so you can sort of flick between these things. All very nice. I just leave it there unless I want to get to the tweed, which I don't use the fat too much. You've got the EQ section, which this amp's got a lot of things about EQ. I just leave it on foot switch, and you can have it off or EQ on permanent, and that's the one what we'll see a bit later down the amp, that away. I tend to leave everything also on 90 watts. I can have it on 45 or 10, but I tend to leave it on 90 so I can get a bit of drive out of the thing. And you know, you want to balance the channels up, so when you're doing that, well, the truth of it is that 90 watts on this clean channel will give you more headroom, I guess, and things like that. You've got your channel 1 normal or bold. Bold just makes it a bit more in your face. It's hard to explain tones, really. I don't want to start reading from the amp manual, it's a bit pointless. Have my gain here, that's the master. Obviously you've got an output master. Presence, treble, mid, bass. I have the bass up a bit on this one to give me that bit of that bottom end, which is nice, and treble back a bit because I don't want too much top end. It's nice where it is that like that, and I don't usually move away from that. There are 1,000 other settings, but I'm not here all day to talk about them. I'll just show you the basics that I do, and Well, you'll hear it at the end, particularly on channel 3. Okay, what we got here is channel 2. This is the way I have it set up. Mine's set to crunch. I've got the EQ on foot switch again because I like that. I can switch it in and out if I want to. Very nice. I'm not bothered about the rest. I'm still on 90 watts, so nice. In fact, across here at the moment they're all on 90s, but I do vary this one sometimes down to 45. And the same with the lead, but at the moment they're set to 90s. If you look at the edge setting here, that takes a bit of the bottom end off actually. Sort of moves it up a bit, and I'm not too keen on that. And I've got the Mark 1, which is supposed to be a soaring sort of lead, you know, like the old classic stuff. I can't get on with that either, so I just leave it on crunch and get on with it from there. You can see my settings here. This is backed off a little bit. Master's backed off compared to channel 1. Presence about the same. The gain's cranked a bit because, you know, it's a crunch channel, let's face it. Treble's brought up a bit, mid's brought up a bit, and as I said, the bass is backed off a bit. That's how I tend to use this channel. It sounds great to me, like that. You'll see the settings around the back, by the way, for these channels when we get there. Well, what have we got here? Well, what we've got is probably the best channel on the amp, in my opinion. The clean's nice and the rhythm's nice. You can get some great tones out of them. No question, they suit the amp, well, perfectly. But it's this channel here which in my view makes this amp really worth buying. Now, Mesa Boogie harp on an awful lot about Mark II C+ up there. I don't. And the reason I don't harp on about it is I don't like it. It's not for me. It's part of history, I guess, a bit like the Mark I mode that they had previous, and I don't use that at all, honestly. I don't think it really adds much to the amp anyway. And you know, some guys will say, oh yeah, Mark II C+, that's the best amp Mesa ever made. But I disagree, I'm afraid. That's just live. I think the Mark IV was much better. But there you go. So if you look at my settings, you can see that mine are set to Mark IV. Fancy that. They're not set to Mark II C+, and they're not set to extreme, although sometimes I do push it down there for the heavier stuff. And that is, you know, if you want that bottom end and the rest, you push it down to extreme. You've got great tones. The tones aren't affected. What's affected is the way it's sort of driven, and that sort of bottom end's added, for want of a better word. So I typically stay in Mark IV near enough all the time. I will drop it down, as I said, but not often. I still stay on the EQ foot switch thing. It's just a Tony thing. I could have it on EQ on all the time, or I could have it in the centre there. But I always leave it on EQ foot switch. Centre's off, of course. Notice again it's on 90 watts, and we'll come back to this voltage, this output thing in a minute. As you'll see from here, it's driven pretty well. My master's pretty much like channel 2. Presence is pretty much like channel 2, but it's slightly higher. That little bit of difference on a lot of these, you know, makes a lot of difference to the tone. Treble's backed off just slightly from channel 2. The mids are boosted a bit because I like to play with mid boost. I like, you know, to play music with mid boost. And the bass is about the same as channel 2 too. So that's it. You've got a channel 3 normal and a channel 3 bright. I do have this in any one of the two modes, normal or bright. I like it sometimes bright. Depends on which guitar, really. I'd flip it back to normal if I was using a Strat, and I'd have it back on bright on that beat up old Ibanez that I play a lot. That's the channel 3 settings. Obviously there's more around the back. We'll move along to the EQ and the output, and then have a look at the back. Okay, here we are in the EQ section. Now what you've got is you've got a switch for each channel. So you can have any given channel, 1, 2 or 3, on either the sliders that are here or on a preset that's here. So effectively you could have 2 EQs, one from this or one from that, for different channels. which is quite, I'd sort of say, with this amp, there's a lot of EQ in there. Oh, the police are coming for me. Oh, they've gone. It must be after someone else. Okay, what I do is, you can see that it's typically in a sort of a V. I'll vary this one a bit, and I keep this one back a bit to just slightly above that line. Works for me. And these presets, well, I'd never use them, if you want the truth. But you can flip them across to there on channel 2, for example, and you'd get these. So you can get some very extreme EQ settings quite nicely, actually. But it's not something I personally use. I stick to this one or none. I'll leave them all turned on sliders, and then with the EQ turned off, or just turn it on for something special. To be honest, I don't use the EQ as much as what some people could, and I think it sounds better without it, if you want the truth. It's a great sounding amp. Now lastly, we're looking at this section here, not this way, from here that way. Got the output. Really, you don't need to crank it too high. You can if you want, but that's life. Turn the 90s down. You can turn them all down to 10 watt and crank it right up if you want. Why not? So that's the master output, and you've got this solo that you can use for if you want to boost from your pedal into a solo. All very nice. And you can pull it out as well. I don't even know what that does. I don't really care what it does either, because I don't use it, don't want to. None of them bother me, but this bit here is something I wanted to talk about. You've got the regular standby for on and off. That's all nice and simple. Everybody knows what that does, and if you don't, you should do. Maybe you're one of them guys that uses just simulators. I don't think they have them. But it's this bit here that concerns me somewhat. You can flip it down, and what that will effectively do is give you like a reduced voltage into the amp internally, or you can have it flipped up for what they call full power, or regular input voltage throughout the amp, as it should be. What I found with it is this variac mode. I think it sounds far inferior to that mode. Yeah, I could push it down there and go and change all my settings for the next 2 or 3 days and mess about. But you know what? It stays there or it goes there. I don't particularly use variac. Sometimes I do, but not often. It still sounds okay, but I don't think it sounds as good as that. It's just my own opinion. Then we've got a mute, an EQ and an FX light, so we can see what's going on the amp from far away. That's how simple it is. Oh, and by the way, on each one of those channels, if you noticed, there was a little LED, a green one for the clean channel, a yellow one for the crunch channel, and a red one for the real channel, channel 3. That's the front out the way. Let's go have a look around the back. Here's a quick overview of the back. Loads of settings, lots of things we can do with this, and I just wanted to show you really that little guard that fits on with a few plastic clips. If ever you remove it, just be careful these don't snap off, because I can see them giving you grief to get some more of them. Maybe not if you're in the USA, but in the UK you're dealing with that awful distributor that will probably charge you 15 quid a clip or something ridiculous. Another story. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to zoom in, and we're going to run across the back just as we did with the front of the amp, and talk a little bit about what is and what is not. Well, at least for me. Okay, quick chat looking at the back of this section. This is really the input voltage is there, by the way. That's where you push your cable, and you'll see that the fuse is there. This has got a sticker stuck on it. Yours might be 110, and you'll have a different fuse than this. But this is the UK and European version, I guess, because I can see, for example, CE approvals. Notice they're stamped on the actual amplifier. Some product I've reviewed didn't have this, and I can tell you if it's not on there, it's basically illegal, at least for Europe. And coming more so with the ROS compliance and stuff like that, you just find it appearing more and more state by state in America, because I know that that is happening from all the things I do. There's the fuse. We've got a manual channel select. That's what you want. Set to put switch on mine. Got a looper sign, also set to put switch. You can switch through. And if you think of the thing I was talking of earlier with the foot pedal not working right, if it switches here, it doesn't switch through the foot, well, you know where to look. And one of the things that does bug me a little bit about Mesa Boogie, no matter what they say, is how they've got these damn things on here. This is to do with external switching, just as it says there. And you can put a regular 1/4 inch thing in there and ground the tip. And for example, if that was grounded, it'd switch the amp to channel 3. Well, this would switch it to 2. Well, where's 1? Well, 1's default, so it doesn't have it. You've also got one for EQ and one for solo. They're all very good, all very nice. However, where's the MIDI port? Well, there isn't one. And you know, on an amplifier that's the price of this in this country, to be honest, it's ridiculous. Yeah, you might have them, but you need a MIDI port. And you know, if you go and have a look at a Marshall Satriani model, for example, good example, it's got a MIDI port on it. It's just there as standard. It hasn't got these because it doesn't need them. And you know, if you're using MIDI, well, there's that much kit around these days that can control MIDI, all well and good. But with this, you've got to go and buy one of those switches like I've got reviewed on my site in the rack thing. You can use the Rocktron one, or you can use the ground control one. They'll both work, I guess, but they cost money. And that's one of the disadvantages of these, is you've got to spend money really to control it from any MIDI input controller. For the most part, there's the odd one that has 1 or 2 often. They never have 4, not the ones that I've seen at least. There might be some, but they're obscure. Okay, well, looking at this section, this is the external effects loop. This is a series type of effects loop, which is better than the parallel things that you often see. You've got a send and return, pretty obvious. What amps have got that on. You've got a variable send level, which is nice, so that you can get the rest of the rack lined up properly, tone-wise and volume-wise, should I say, that is. And we've got the loop active or the loop turned out. And when it's out, it's really out. It switches masses of circuitry out of the amp. But it also switches out all these other things down here. Okay, so you can't have your cake and eat it. That's the way mine's set. I don't even move it from centre. I do have effects in there and it does work nice, so not much more to say about that. Well, here we are in a section that's quite important. I'll get the easy bit out of the way first. You've got 3 controls for the reverb. One for each channel. Channel 1, channel 2, channel 3. All nice and simple. Anybody understands that? You can see I have mine all pretty much the same. But it's when we come down to these 3 here that this amp starts to stand out against most of everything else, really, I guess. What you've got, channel 1, you can have it for the rectification on either diode or tube. Now when it's in diode, it's much more modern sounding amp than when it's in tube. The recto portion of it, to me, sounds a bit flabby sometimes. It's not quite there. I like an amp that responds well, and when it's in diodes it definitely does. And you've got the same on channel 2. You notice I have this one set to diodes, which is the sort of clean channel, and this one set to tube for that channel 2 grungy type of thing, because I don't really get into the detune stuff. And then we've got channel 3, and channel 3 has a couple of modes here. It has a triode mode and a pentode mode, and it switches the preamp tubes accordingly. What you get is, with the triode, This softens the mid-range a bit and makes the upper harmonics better, or shall we say more compressed. When you're in pentode mode, it's more in your face, right? So I suspect you really have this for the detune, whatever you want to do with all that. These are my settings anyway. That's where it works for me, and that's where them two work for me. Although I might change sometimes this one, also into diode. Now you might say, well, hey Tony, what's the point of buying a recto if you never use the recto bit? Well, that's just life. It depends what you're doing with the amp, and it depends what style you're playing at the time. You can switch these anytime, and notice that it's only applicable on 45 watt. Alright, so if you're on 90, when you come to 45, you can switch the tube in or out. When it's on 90, it's diode, I think you'll find all the time. So guess what? Mine's on diode nearly all the time. Like I said, I don't come around the back and particularly use that. Let's move on. Okay, well, we've got what you'd expect in the speaker section, the output section. 8 ohm combo, it says there, 8 ohm, 2 times 8 ohm cabs, 4 ohm. You can mix around and read the manual. I don't know, I just bang them in one of them and away you go. Yeah, nice and simple. I'm not going to bore you with that. I'm not going to bore you with this either, really. What you've got is a slave level out, so you can bang this off to another amplifier, and you've got an output for a tuner, which is quite nice. Yes, basically if you have the mute on your foot pedal, you'll have a signal on this to the tuner, which is nice because it doesn't make any noise and you can see what's going on. But don't forget that you've got to have the loop engaged, otherwise this doesn't work. So that's part and parcel of that active loop thing. But nevertheless works well. Okay, well, we're getting pretty much near the end of the amp now, or the other end of the amp. Where do I get these things from? There's the dreaded foot switch, and if you count them, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and the magic one in the middle, 8. That is for the effects, that number 8. So if you get a cable with 7 on, that's what you're going to lose. You can't switch it. You can have the fan turned off if you're in the studio, which is nice. So when you do a bit of recording, you flip it down. We've also got the fixed bias, as you've always got on Mesa Boogies. So you really want Mesa Boogie tubes in there, or tubes that are balanced or matched to the same as what Mesa Boogie would be. And you've got a choice of 6L6 or AL34. There it is. All nice and simple. Lastly, if you look down here, all these are patent numbers or patent numbers, depending where you come from, applied to this amplifier. And what they do, to be honest, I like to see that sort of thing because they protect your product somewhat from being copied by lots and lots of Chinese companies. And the advantage of having a proper patent is that, well, not only are you protecting your company, as Mesa do, as I said, protecting your investment, because you don't want to buy one of these and then next week you find that there's a £300 equivalent out there, do you? Not really a good idea. Anyway, that concludes round the back as well. I'm back! Oh, wasn't that all boring? Well, I suppose it is, but it's not so boring if you've just bought one of these and you're grovelling around a bit trying to figure out what to do. I mean, let's face it, us guitarists are not that clever, are we? Duh. Well, I'm not that clever. And I don't want to be that clever. What I want to do is to get a great tone out of an amp. And out of this amp, you have to understand a few little simple things and away you go. Now, at this point, I always talk about a manual, and here's the Mesa Boogie one. I wouldn't call it hyper thin. But on the other hand, you've got a whole section in the back here talking about Irishmen and things, and pentodes and triodes. You don't want to waste your time with that. You've got all this crap here where you can spend hours learning how to plug a speaker in. Diagnosing tube problems. Well, yeah, sure. Get rid of all that. So it's starting to come down. Then you've got all these little images that you could draw for ages. So from about there back, manual's getting a bit thinner now. See that? Getting a bit thinner. And as you continue back, the rest of it, actually, it's all good reading. It's not 250 pages like you see with some of these things. It doesn't need to be. This is a tube amp. Tube amps don't need that. And I think this and the Road King 2 are probably as complex an amp as you're ever going to find. In fact, the Road King 2 is worse than this by a long way, because you've got loads of settings for each channel, and you have it's all across the back, and you can switch cabs and all sorts of things on the Road King 2. Problem with the Road King 2 is that number one, they're expensive, and number two, would you ever use all of those features? Probably not. I don't. But on this one, there's a lot of features I do use, but honestly, coming back, the most important thing about this amp is its output, how it sounds. I've got these simulators, emulators, and I'm going to do some more reviews on some of them presently, actually. But it doesn't matter how you look at it, they don't sound the same. They're similar. They're not the same. When you're playing this, the way that it feels, the way that it sounds is different. And I've tried every brand, I think, or nearly every brand of the top end ones. And the one that comes the nearest is Kemper, no doubt about that. And then the other two, I don't think have the essence of this amp. It's sort of similar, but so is a £400 GT100. Take the point. So if you want to sound like one of these, you buy one of these. That's why I have it. Anyway, hope you liked it. It's all good stuff, and I'm going to do an in-depth review on my website, www.TonyMckenzie.com, of this very amp. Indeed, I've taken loads of pictures and done other stuff that you don't know about. And that's all going to be in the review, so it should be quite a good review, especially when I like a product. I usually do a good review. I like this product. So that's it for this one. You're going to listen to a bit of, well, maybe you're not, maybe you'll play it off, or maybe you've already gone, who knows. But I'll put a bit of the guitar on that I played recently through this when I was demoing something else, the Jimmy Page. And with those settings, and you know they're on a Mark IV, so what's it sound like? Well, it sounds like a sort of Mark IV, really, with a Jimmy Page, which is always going to be good. That's it for now. See you again soon. Watch out for the other reviews. I've got 4 or 5 coming up right now. Maybe over the next week, maybe over the next few days. It's just time. See you soon. Thanks for watching.